All right, Lawrence, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. This is Lawrence Kazan Cassini in South Florida. I'm very, very, very privileged and honored to have Dr. Louis Cady on the call today. He's a very renowned person in our circles, and as well as many others. He's a person of much talent. He's an accomplished musician that is a pianist. He's also with a degree. He's also an incredible photographer, which kind of goes hand in hand, I guess, if you're artsy, but he's also a scientist. So he's also got a medical degree. And what's fascinating to me is that well, first of all, he's the founder of the Cady Wellness Institute, which if you Google that and you Google Dr. Cady, you'll see it's very, very impressive. The thing that is fascinating to me is that Dr. Cady is a psychiatrist. So my question would be, what is a psychiatrist got in common with the Pharmanex products? That for me is like, how would you explain that? Dr. Cady, would you tell me how psychiatry and Pharmanex and its supplements go hand in hand with you?
Absolutely. First of all, I want to describe your question. What's a nice boy like you doing in a place like this? You know, how in the heck did I get here? And so I'll tell you, Lawrence, just kind of broadly speaking, if it's bad in psychiatry, it's got oxidative stress. So we think about the things that are bad in psychiatry, not that the person is bad, but the condition can be bad. And it goes from autism to ADHD to bipolar to depression to schizophrenia. Those are the big so-called biological conditions in psychiatry. And when I came out of Mayo Clinic in 1993, I was all primed to be a good little allopathic doctor and go out and prescribe, as I've said before, take 2 Prozac and don't call me in the morning. I mean, that was my level of sophistication. I do recall that when we had people coming into the hospital with Wernicke-Korsakoff psychosis, they actually did get vitamins. It was IV B vitamins, but that's the only, and also our pregnant ladies, they got prenatal vitamins, but that was about it. And so when I came out, I didn't really have a background in nutritional medicine and the concept of nutritional supplementation. So as those of you that know me know, I'm kind of a competitive guy. I like, if I'm presenting, I want it to be the best I can possibly do. If I'm treating patients, I want them to have the best possible outcome, which to me is they are well. That's the reason, in fact, that's our tagline at Cady Wellness Institute, integrating mind and body for peak performance. I don't want them a little bit better. I want them all the way better. One of my mentors, a guy named Steven Stahl, once gave a talk called Why Settle for the Silver When You Can Go for the Gold? And I wanted to go for the gold. I want my peeps well. And so when I came to Evansville in 1993, I basically spent about 3 or 4 years picking the low-hanging fruit. These were the people that had been screwed over by the rest of the medical profession. I mean, I love my doctor buddies, don't get me wrong. All my doctor buddies, chiros, MDs, naturopaths, but the typical medical allopathic practice of medicine had failed these people. And so I couldn't get, some of these people, I could not get better with conventional psychiatric medication. And so I began using supplements and hormones. I had a naturopath that associated herself with me. And that was basically what I was doing until in about 2005, this very perky and persistent RN MBA named Lisa Bell came calling on me and said, I've got something that I think you should take a look at. So I looked at it. I was interested. I wrote the original white paper in 2006 because I thought and this reminds me of a tip I want to give you all. I thought, why would I be doing this if I'm not totally convinced of the science behind it? So I wrote the first one, and then I believe it was in 2017 or I think 2017, and released in 2018, the updated Katie white paper. So two things I want to mention, and then Lawrence, I'm going to turn it back over to you because I don't want to do a monologue. I want to have a dialogue. So number one, it's not just everything that's bad in psychiatry is associated with oxidative stress. It's everything that's bad in medicine is associated with oxidative stress. So just this last Monday, 2 weeks ago, I gave my first webinar on how to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. And that one was on how to boost your immunity. And for all of you that are on this call, if you look at that webinar, which is at cwiyoutube.com, don't go to YouTube, go to cwiyoutube.com. And it's the second one on the screen. So when I did that, and if you look at it, you'll think it was a Pharmanex commercial. Now, I was brand neutral. I talked about the multivitamin, multimineral fish oil system that I was taking twice a day. And I remember John Whitaker, when I've heard him in Provo talking about, it's not a supplement. It's not a multivitamin. It's a multivitamin, multimineral fish oil, carotenoid supplement. And so I talked about that a lot. So in terms of medicine, in terms of cancer, rheumatology, cardiology, if it's bad, there's some oxidative stress involved. And I would invite the listeners this morning to go over to pubmed.gov, PubMed, PUBMED.gov. The only problem with PubMed is they don't serve the little alcohol drinks with the umbrellas on them, and you can sip them on a tropical exotic location like it looks where Lawrence is this morning. But PubMed.gov, and type in the affliction of your choice, and then after that affliction, add antioxidant, or the affliction of your choice, carotenoid, or the affliction of your choice, oxidative stress. And you will find that there is a huge amount of misery out there in conventional medicine. And I would be so bold as to advance death in current society because of our terrible, not ours, not the people on this call, but the terrible nutritional state of most Americans. So the first point I wanted to make is it's not just about psychiatry. It's about everything in medicine. And if you are a physician, a healer, a healthcare practitioner, a doctor of Oriental medicine, a doctor of chiropractic, it doesn't matter what you are, and particularly MDs who don't get trained in this, it is absolutely imperative if you want to be operating at the most positive, ethical, moral level in your practice that you learn this material. The second thing I will tell you, and this will be brief. If you're going to do this, do it all the way. Don't do it halfway. Don't stick your feet in the water or your toe in the water and say, maybe I'll try a scanner. Maybe I'll lease it. Maybe I'll try some of these supplements. I would say go into it, as I did, skeptical, with an inquisitive mind. And then, to quote my mentor, Jim Rohn, the numbers tell the story. So when I started on LifePak Nano, I was at 27,000. I was taking $300 worth of premium priced supplements each month, $300. And I had a D score, D plus, but it was a D. And I went on LifePak Nano, as Lisa Bell encouraged me to do. And darn, in 2 months, I was up in the mid to high 40s. And recently I checked myself, 65,000. For those of you on the call that don't know what that is, that's a good number. That means I am bathed, my cells are bathed in antioxidants. So do your diligence, prove it to yourself, read the literature, read the white paper. If I had not written the white paper, I wouldn't be talking to you today. And my understanding is some people that have done very well in Pharmanex that focus on nutrition have found the white paper very helpful for them. One final thing. In this webinar that I gave a couple of weeks ago, we talked about antioxidants and immune function. So as many of you know, I always like to cruise through PubMed before I give a talk. When you look at antioxidant and immune system, there were 19,633 citations as of April 25th. And then you can go through and slice it and dice it. You can look at vitamin C. Vitamin D, by the way, is important. Zinc actually has some antioxidant effect. I was not aware of that. So you have to have zinc. I don't know if anybody that's been on LifePak Nano twice a day and AgeLock Youth and all of the other goodies, the AgeLock Vitality, Reishi Max, and so forth, have come down with COVID-19, or if they have, actually, I do know of somebody, and he's on the call. We were talking about he probably had it. I think I may have had it a couple of months ago. I felt a little bit tired, a little bit off my game, just a little bit achy, and then it went away. So I haven't had an antibody test yet, but I suspect that really many people that have been on our nutritional supplements have had it and have had mild effects. One final thing I'll say, according to the DSHEA Act, Dietary Supplement Health Education Act, no supplement, and that includes ours, and that includes the stuff from John Whitaker's health food store back in the day, no supplement can be asserted or claimed to treat, prevent, cure, mitigate, or ameliorate any disease. So we can't say, hey, take LifePak Nano and you won't get COVID-19. But we can say there is evidence in the medical literature that oxidative stress and low antioxidants is associated with bad immune function. And it seems reasonable that we would want good immune function. So take your choice. What else you got for me, Lawrence? Lawrence, you're muted. I see the little red microphone there.
Yes, I've been invaded by two crows, and they're horrible things. So I'm trying to mute those. So, on the subject of antioxidants, I saw Lester Packard said you can actually have too many. What's your take on that?
Well, thank you. That is an outstanding question. And as a matter of fact, that is in the revised Katie white paper. I don't mean to keep blowing my own horn, but it's in there. And the concept is the principle of hormesis, HORMESIS. And that reminds me of the Mae West quote that too much of a good thing is wonderful. Well, in terms of antioxidants, too much of a good thing can be stupid, but it's very difficult to get too much of a good thing in terms of antioxidants if you eat 8 to 10 to 12 servings of fruits and vegetables per day. Eat healthy, get away from the American fast food or fast food anywhere in the world. The body uses oxidative stress to kill invaders, bacterias, virus. It's an oxidative stress technique. The natural killer cells that rip open the COVID-19 infected cells use oxidative stress, peroxisome, so-called, which is basically like little hydrogen peroxide bombs that are shot out to kill the cell. Some of my friends who are hematologists have told me that they don't want me to put their patient that's getting chemotherapy on antioxidants because they say we're trying to induce oxidative stress in their cancer cells, and we don't want anything to offset that. Now, that's open debate. There's two sides to that debate. But yeah, too much of a good thing is not good. So vitamin A, I remember one question on I think it was a biochemistry exam in medical school, and it said, you are in an in a location that is all white. It is extremely cold. Your compass will not find true north. It just swings around. There is a large white animal that comes up, and you've been extremely food deprived, and you kill it and you eat it and you eat its organs, and then you die. What did you die of? And of course, the answer is polar bear liver, because it is loaded with vitamin a toxic level of vitamin A. And if you eat it, you will die. So that is a classic example of too much of a good thing is really bad for you. I think in our products, which were modeled after a reasonable diet of fruits and vegetables, I don't think it is possible to overdose on them. That being said, if you sit around and you take 5 packets of Life Pack Nano in the morning and 5 packets of Life Pack in the evening, yeah, you might have some health consequences. So don't mega dose it. Just 1 pack twice a day should be adequate.
Well, there's 2 things there. Now, I'm going to make sure that I don't eat bear liver when I go to Whole Foods. I'm going to look for that. No bear liver.
No, polar bear liver. You probably won't find polar bear liver at Whole Foods.
Yeah, make sure I don't have that.
Right.
The other thing, you've put my mind at rest, because my score is 100, over 100. Not always, but especially now when I got lots of mangoes and stuff. So right. I can't overdose on antioxidants.
Lawrence, let me talk about that for a second. It's difficult to overdose on antioxidants if you're eating food. But you just touched on one of my favorite themes in terms of the biophotonic scanner and the Pharmanex products. And that is simply because you have a high antioxidant score does not mean you are healthy.
Yeah.
Indeed, my naturopath, Dr. Whitney Gabhart, who works here, has advanced the thesis that the sickest people in her practice that she ever sees are vegetarians. And the reason is they get lots of antioxidants, they get lots of carotenoids, but they don't get enough fat, so they don't have enough cholesterol, so they don't have enough sex hormones and adrenal hormones, and that's a bad thing. But the interesting thing with our line of supplements is that if you take them and the scan score from your palm goes up, it does mean that you are absorbing the carotenoids from the supplements, but it also means that you're absorbing everything else. Now, the scanner doesn't check your zinc level or your selenium or your B12, but all of those go along. It's kind of like an entourage. The carotenoids are there leading the pack, but everything else is coming along behind. So increased score equals increased nutritional status if you're taking a good product. If you're sitting around drinking carrot juice and eating too many mangoes all day, then 105,000 score is nothing to crow about. But Lawrence, I know that you use our products, so what you're doing, your mangoes are a little lagniappe on top of your nutritional supplementation.
That's right. So, what prompted you to get the scanner? I mean, how could you, when you, as a psychiatrist, if I was a patient, and I probably should be, to come and see a psychiatrist, and you were to scan me, I'd say, okay, how does that work? How did you integrate your scanner with the understanding that the patient could understand?
One thing that I did, and I have heard this discussed at our healthcare summits in Provo, is that I came up with a 1-page letter. And we, back in the day, we need to get back to this. COVID-19 has stressed all of us. My staff is down a little bit. But back in the day, every patient that came in would get this and said, we have this new technology. It's the biophotonic scanner. It measures your antioxidant. Not only is this relevant for your mental health, but it's relevant for your physical health. And we charge $25 for it. And if you would like it, just indicate below. And then that was stuck in the patient's chart, and I would get it. This reminds me of my own personal health experience when I went to see my optometrist here locally, Christine Verbeck, an excellent practitioner. And they offered me this retinal photograph of the back of my eye, because you can get a much better view of the back of the eye if the eyes are dilated and you take a picture, rather than the optometrist or physician trying to use the ophthalmoscope and look all around the back of the eye. So it said, it's going to be $50. You want it? I said, yeah, I'll take it. I mean, I was there because I wanted my eyes protected and I wanted to have the correct prescription. So I haven't really had a lot of pushback on that. I have had people that said no, and I will look at it. And there's a book called Go for No.
Yep.
I will look at that, and I will go for no. I will go for a definite no. I will say, it says that you checked, you didn't want it. I'm just curious, why not? And if they say, well, I already take plenty of supplements, I already eat a good diet, I say, okay. Sometimes people that take supplements and eat a good diet are not nutritionally replete, and this would determine it. Or sometimes they say, well, I didn't really know what it was about, and so I said no. And then I explained it, and they said, well, I'll have that. So that's how I've done it. And I've done it in an ethical fashion. I'm not shoving it down my patients' throats. If you bring your ADHD kid in, Jumping Johnny, and I'm not talking about the mild ones. I get the worst of the worst. So real Jumping Johnny, bounding from one piece of furniture to another. Oxidative stress is not my primary focus at that point. But ultimately, little Johnny's health, I will probably get around to scanning him.
When you said about go for no, it reminds me, just recently I spoke to someone and we were talking about the scanner, and somebody said to him, 80% of the people are going to say they're not even interested. And he said, that's wonderful news. 20% are going to say yes. So it's how we perceive it. So it's just a perception.
Exactly.
So what's the products that you recommend? I know you've got a varied clientele, if we could call it that way, of different patients, but what's your flag product?
I do have a varied clientele. Everybody from people on Medicaid, which pays for their medications but doesn't pay for me, to the well-heeled that just pay for it out of pocket. I accept no insurance. So it depends. My goal is to meet my patient's needs in the most precise, ethical, cost-effective fashion that I can. And so my go-to product, the ultimate would be, or the near ultimate would be LifePak Nano. The ultimate would probably be LifePak Nano and ageLOC Youth. And these days I would add AIE10 and reishi to it because I want my immune system boosted. For those that can't afford that, one box of LifePak regular, one packet twice a day. And if they can't afford that, have it shipped to them every other month. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. If they can't afford LifePak, one packet a day, this would be like 30, 35, 40 bucks a month, they're not interested in getting healthy. So it's reminds me of another Jim Rohn quote. He said, when the why gets clear, the how gets easy. So when the why of their needing to be on that gets clear to them, they'll figure out a way. I mean, that's like 5 or 6 trips to Starbucks per month. That's the equivalent of that. Or a couple of, well, more than a couple of 6-packs, quite a number of 6-packs. I mean, or a carton of cigarettes or 2 cartons of cigarettes. You want to smoke the cancer sticks, drink the booze, or do you get overly caffeinated, or do you want to get healthy?
Okay. So here's a question that I'm thinking now, that from the psychiatrist's point of view, and it's a question that I'm going to read. I wrote it myself last night, but how do you see the mental health of the general population undergoing such psychological stress that we have right now? What advice to help people going forward? In other words, we've got this house arrest in many ways, some people have got kids, small kids, others have extraterrestrials, the teenagers and all the rest of it. So 5 weeks, we all long to stay home, generally, in our lives.
Right.
Now we are stuck at home. Now we've got all kinds of other issues that come up. My question is, how do you see the mental state of everybody?
Well, that's a very interesting question, and I swear to everybody, I did not plant that question. So let me deal with it. First of all, I'll give you a reference. Back to cwiyoutube.com. Watch the most recent webinar, which is how to deal with the psychological stress of COVID-19. And we talked about a number of things, including NLP concepts. And there's this concept of frame and your concept of state. And then there's this notion of, are you at cause or are you at effect? And the advanced NLP practitioner would assert for every patient that you are responsible for the way you feel. It's not just the question that you're cooped up under one roof. It's the way you run your brain. It's the stories that you tell yourself. It's your model of the world that's going to determine how you feel. So I broke it down very systematically. We looked at David Burns and cognitive distortions. We looked at Martin Seligman and learned optimism. And let's see. Oh, and we looked at a chapter that I wrote in a book called Without Your Head, You're Dead. That's the name of my chapter. It was in the book Work Smarter, Not Harder. And we talked about the 5 Ps of looking at what's going on in your head, and also the ABCDEFGs of behavioral change. So it's all there. Go feast on it. It's a really good webinar. But if that doesn't totally answer your question, Lawrence, let's go back and go over it again. What else would you like to know?
A quick one, which may not be in your field, but glutathione. Obviously very important. Scanner sensitive?
No. Glutathione is very important. It has been considered the body's #1 most abundant, most potent antioxidant. It's how we detoxify things that come from outside of our body. It helps us deal with oxidative stress. I remember being very impressed, both in residency and then in the beginning of my practice here in Evansville, about how teeny boppers would try to overdose themselves on Tylenol, and they would end up in the ICU. And the only thing that would save them and keep them from dying of liver failure was massive infusions of N-acetylcysteine to boost glutathione. So I'm a big believer in NAC, N-acetylcysteine. It's been used a lot in psychiatry of late. It's been associated with improvement in OCD, improvement in nail biting, improvement in tics. There are studies that show that it works extremely well in schizophrenia at a higher dose. So it's the real deal. In terms of glutathione pills, forget it. Because just regular glutathione, because you will digest it. You've just given yourself a pointless supplement that you're paying money for. What you want to do is you want to take the precursor molecules or the precursor molecule in acetylcysteine.
Dr. Lewis Cady, it's half an hour has gone like in 3 minutes. We're at the end of our little call on Friday morning. I wonder if there's any parting shots that you would like to give us as far as balancing mental health and physical health. I mean, you'd probably do that with photography, you do that with your music, you do that with your, how do you balance, and what would you tell us to do? What sort of advice would you have for us?
I would say count your blessings. Reminds me of this hymn that I sang as I grew up. So as you pointed out earlier, many of us long to be at home more, and now we are, and now we don't like it. let's take a look at the positives that can come from being at home. And I talked about this on the webinar. I'll leave your viewers with this. There is something called the 98% rule. And the 98% rule in terms of parenting is that by the time your kid turns 18 and leaves home, you have spent 98% of the time that you will ever be in their life with them. And the same thing with the kids. You have spent 98% of the time you will ever have with your parents with them. So I think it's very important for us to recognize this, to take advantage of the opportunity, to be grateful for the opportunity, and to very thoughtfully and accurately work through our thoughts and our cognitive distortions, which is on that webinar, and try to achieve a much more of a sense of serenity about things.
I love it. Thank you. Dr. Katie, what I'd like, I see there's several requests here to see if we could indulge in having you back to have another little session, because you're a fascinating guy and you've got a lot of very, very worthwhile information from an aspect that we don't normally talk about. We don't normally talk about the mental health, and I think that's fertile ground for us to really explore with an expert like yourself. So thank you very, very much for taking the time. Thanks everybody for being on. I appreciate it. Blessings. The call obviously will be recorded and put on Facebook, and we'll all go and look at your CW YouTube.
CWI YouTube, Katie Wellness Institute, the 3 letters, CWIYouTube.com. Top two things on the page.
Check those two. Thank you very much, everybody. Blessings. Have a good week.